Hi, I'm John Barlow. I'm here with a couple of my constituents, Stephen Vandervalk and Leroy Newman, who are here at the Agriculture Committee and the Trade Committee fighting for canola producers across Canada. And I just want to ask, Stephen, what was the reason that you flew overnight to be here today? Why was this important for you to be here?
Well, we're just losing. It's another option we have for growing crops. We've already lost 3 or 4, Durham being a big one, and some of the other markets. So canola was just the last straw. It's a lot of people's 30 to 50% of their farm is canola. To lose 40% of that market is just devastating, and it's something that I just took time away from seeding because we are seeding now, and it just was so important I decided to come.
And we certainly appreciate you taking the time away. We know this is a tough time of the year for our producers, but we need to stress the urgency of this situation. Leroy, for yourself, what was the reason? What the message you want to get across today?
I think it's similar to what Stephen had said. My big concern is we have a problem with revenue coming in this year. We're going to have a hard time filling this gap, a void that this canola income gives us. And we're really concerned on the future of agriculture if we don't have this 4th crop or rotation. And if we don't get this canola moved, we're going to have a problem for next year, and it's going to snowball.
Well, we really appreciate both of you being here. I'd encourage you to take a look at their testimony that they gave today at the Agriculture Committee and the Trade Committee to have our constituents from Foothills here in Ottawa fighting for their friends and their neighbours and producers across the country shows just how important this canola is to Canada's economy and certainly to our Western Canadian producers.
Opening statements, if you want to start, Mr. Vandervalk, up to 6 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Mr. Chair, members of Parliament, thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. My name is Stephen Vandervalk. I'm a 4th generation farmer from Fort Macleod area of southern Alberta, and I've been farming my whole life. I am past president of the Grain Growers of Canada and current director with the Western Canadian Wheat Growers. Most grain farmers are an entrepreneurial group. We were pleased when the Wheat Board was disbanded and we were able to sell our grain competitively on the world market ourselves. We were pleased when the current government said that they wanted to increase agriculture exports by 25% by 2025. We were pleased that the trade agreements have been signed with CETA and CPTPP. But when grain growers are caught in innocent political ponds in events that we have no control over, we always pay the price. I currently plant 4,500 acres to canola. Since the announcement in early March by China that they are putting a stop on the importation of Canadian canola, the futures bid have dropped, costing me $50,000 on my old crop, or what I have in the bin today. Looking at the 2019 crop, I potentially lose another 100,000, or much more if this continues. The worst case scenario is that there will not be any bids for canola. Multiply that across 43,000 Canadian canola growers in Western Canada, and we face potential loss in the billions. Yes, let me repeat that. We face potential losses in the billions of dollars. That's real money out of every grain farmer's bottom line. Imagine a loss of that magnitude as it rolls out and impacts machinery and truck dealers, local suppliers, support services, and all the ancillary services. The cost is enormous. The timing of this issue and the timing of me being here could not be worse. I should be at home seeding, and thankfully my family is able to help cover for me. The season is short, and this issue is weighing heavy on every grain farmer. You already know that China is the largest end market for Canadian canola, accounting for approximately 40% of all Canadian canola products exported annually. In 2018, canola seed exported to China generated $2.7 billion, according to the Canola Council, and that Canadian canola crop contributes $26.7 billion annually to the Canadian economy. The statement from China that they are not buying our canola because of dangerous pests is ludicrous. Canada is noted to consistently grow and export the best grain in the world. This is a political issue, pure and simple. Political problems need political solutions. If we must play the game of grain inspection, so be it. But in the meantime, Canadian grain farmers are the ones paying the price for the political failings. I remind this committee that it is not the only current agricultural failing that grain farmers are facing. The list of significant trade issues for Canadian grains industry has grown long. Italy is no longer importing the world's best Canadian durum due to non-tariff trade barriers. The past few years, we have usually exported 1 million tons valued at $250 million. The durum market has been decimated. In fact, we can't even sell it. Peru has stopped importing Canadian wheat, our 6th largest market, claiming that we have a weed seed issue. At over 1 million tons, that's another 200 million. Vietnam has stopped importing Canadian wheat, claiming that it has got thistle seeds in it. That's markets at over 4 million. India has applied massive tariffs on our pulse crops, valued over $1 billion. Saudi Arabia is not importing our wheat and barley, valued over $4 million due to diplomatic dispute. In case you aren't adding up these numbers, that's over $4.2 billion in direct export sales annually. Using multiplier effect 1.5, this is a potential loss to our economy of $6.3 billion. Grain farmers aren't looking for financial handouts. We're looking to grow our exports, our crops on a level playing field. We can compete with any country in the world if we don't have one arm tied behind our back. Unfair non-tariff trade barriers and one-sided taxes such as the carbon tax force Canadian grain farmers into impossible situations. We ask you not to force us into uncompetitive situations. The combined potential loss through export losses of China, Italy, Peru, Vietnam, India, and Saudi Arabia is staggering. Canada can feed the world, but not if our government does not act strongly on our behalf, removing non-tariff trade barriers, enforcing existing trade agreements, and removing political roadblocks. This week, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change announced $12 million in funding to Loblaws, one of Canada's largest companies owned by one of Canada's richest families. Frankly, it is embarrassing and a slap in the face to grain farmers when this takes place. If you truly want ingenuity and a clean economy, support agriculture. Support us not through handouts, but by getting out of the way of the modernization and growing practices that we've been developing for the past 20 years. Agriculture has been on a leading edge of environmental protection, sequestering carbon through our low-till and no-till seeding, using GPS and AI, and minimizing our inputs and carbon footprint, all the while maximizing grain output. If you want to effectively maximize the benefits of Canadian agriculture, take the steps necessary today to reduce and eliminate the barriers that farmers are facing today. We plan our crop rotations in a very scientific manner. Factors such as soil types, market, history of crops on the piece of land, fertilizer, and other inputs are all used to determine what crops we should plant. We do this every year well in advance of spring seeding. Now we are faced with a huge disruption that changes everything. Are farmers concerned? We sure are, and rightly so. Our future depends on these outcomes. These combined issues already becoming the largest crisis our farm has ever seen in 100 years of our farm. Give us the assurance that you're resolving these issues, not with empty words, but with actions. Show us what you mean, what you say. Thank you, and look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Van der Valk. And
Furthest west first from Alberta, we have Leroy Newman from Newman Farms Limited. Go ahead, Mr. Newman, you got the floor.
Thanks for everybody letting me come here today. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leroy Newman. I'm from Blackie, Alberta, which is just south of Calgary. I'm fourth generation. My family's been farming. We grow canola, barley, peas, and wheat. We also have a cattle operation, and despite the fact that we are in the middle of calving this season, this issue is so important I felt compelled to be here and speak to the committee and the crisis we are facing with canola. I'm here representing farmers on how international trade affects Canadian farmers. How is the current government going to protect Canadian farmers, not for my generation, but for the future of my kids who hope to farm in the near future? Within weeks, I'll be seeding my crops. As a result of the dispute with China, I'm struggling whether I can change my acres up or down. And the answer is yes, but only about 5%. The canola crisis is devastating to my operation. Price-wise, 2018 was a good year. But for 2019, the price have dropped close to 20% already, which is devastating the canola market. For example, I budgeted on $11.30 per bushel for canola, and due to the trade issues with China, the prices have dropped to $9.20 per bushel and falling. Therefore, my margins have dropped significantly from $115 an acre to just $14, which is not enough to sustain my farm. This also impacts the sustainability of my farm. Today's producers follow a sound practice of rotating crops because maintaining a good crop rotation ensures we can manage disease, crop protection products, most importantly, since I zero-till my lands, keep my soils as healthy and productive as they can be. Canola is a vital crop in my rotation, and seed and fertilizer blends have been bought already specifically for canola. Farmers take the risk of planting a crop in hopes it will mature and hit top quality. I take care in managing that throughout the growing season to harvest. The export market is a lifeline to Canadian farmers. I say most of my crops are sold into the export market. My wheat is destined for flour, my peas for human consumption, malt barley into great beer, and naturally my canola into top quality vegetable oil. Over 90% of Canada's grains are exported, and China has always been one of our biggest and one we cannot lose. We as producers know we grow top quality grain. We have the backing of our testing here with the CFIA and the science that goes with it. China is demanding more of our products, and they know it is top quality. We see the crisis as purely an artificial trade barrier and expect governments from agriculture and international trade to take it seriously and work on the solutions. All this being said, my biggest concern is storage. This summer will be a large carryover of canola as prices decline and farmers hold on for higher prices due to the timing of this crisis and the lack of resolution. Most producers will not be able to change their rotation, resulting in more grain in storage. Merchants rely on us to move a lot of grain in the summer and for fall export. And keep in mind, there's still so much storage capacity. With the loss of China in the market, we run a risk of low prices, no movement on already bottlenecked transportation system. The current rail transportation number forecasts another backlog for the fall and winter. And then that's, I'm going to save the rest of my things for more questions, if you don't mind.
Well, thank you, sir.